Garland Nixon with the one and only Margaret Kimberly, the editor and senior writer, I guess, at Black Agenda Report. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here with Margaret Kimberly. And Margaret Kimberly, let me show you before we go on. I always like to do this with my guests. Black Agenda Report. It's a great magazine. It's a great website, news commentary, and analysis from the Black left. Yeah, and let me just start with so people know a little bit about Black Agenda. My introduction to Black Agenda Report and the people who are involved in it. And that is during the Obama administration. And I saw the people who are involved with Black Agenda Report, I mean, excoriating Obama, criticizing Obama. And at the time I thought, what are they doing? Why are they going after Obama? We've got a Black president. He's supposed to be. And slowly but surely, I started like, you know, they are really on point with that particular criticism. And I came to understand that I'd been had. I came to understand that what these monsters will do that go around the world committing genocide and robbing everybody, what they'll do is they'll put a Black face, a female face, a trans face, a gay face, all of the above out there. And it's rainbow imperialism. And then they're going to go around and they're going to do the same thing. But they're going to, I'll put it even like this. They use Black people, gay people, whatever, as human shields so that they can be involved in their filthy theft. Margaret.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we were, Black Agenda Report was consistent. We were consistent with our politics. We did not change our politics because Obama was president. And you're absolutely right. Obama was the perfect man for the moment. The system was in crisis after the U.S. invasion and occupation of Iraq. Bush was not popular. Republicans were not popular. So was it Goldman Sachs or Citibank that chose Obama's cabinet? I can't remember.
Citibank. In an email.
And so they needed someone, a new face, Black man, a biracial man, smart guy, had charisma. He was perfect for them. And so he bailed out the banks, not the people. He destroyed Libya. He did all the things that other presidents did, but it was a different face. And so they could get away with what they got away with before. So the first Black person, first woman, etc., someone in a marginalized group, but some individual who's not at all marginalized, right. They will prop up to do their dirty work.
Well, one other thing real quick about that, and that is the myth that anybody can become president. Look at him. Well, wait a minute. He went to the finest school in Hawaii. He went to Harvard. He went to, he was, and, I've always been suspicious because his mother was in the CIA. Let's face it. Yes. She goes to Indonesia. His mother just happens to be in Indonesia when the U.S. is committing a genocide of the left. Coincidence. But my point being, he wasn't just anybody. His kids weren't, your kids just like Obama's kids. No, you didn't go to Harvard. You didn't have Zbigniew Brzezinski discover you as a student in Harvard, prop you up, move you to the top, do everything that needs to be done. The road was set for him. Everything was greased for him to be perfect. And then the game worked because you got this good-looking, smart Black guy in there, and you have the Black America, which had been so distrusting of the government, which had been, and a lot of other minorities that were distrusting of the government. They were anti-war. And what do? You bring this guy in here, and he drags them into, the government is your friend, and you should be. War is a good thing. We're doing it for a good reason to help the women in Afghanistan, whatever the hell. So he was a perfect vehicle to really shift Black America into the worst possible political scenario.
Oh, absolutely. And he got buy-in for if anybody else had been president when the U.S. toppled Gaddafi's government, destroyed the Libyan state, murdered Gaddafi. If it had been anyone other than Obama, Black people would have opposed it. But he was president. So all of it, and the presidency is like a popularity contest. So they ultimately, they will all do, there will be differences, but there's a lot of continuity also. So when the person you don't like deports people, then it's like, oh my God, it's so terrible. They're snatching people off the streets. But Obama deported more. He was the deporter in chief. So Trump's term is just beginning, but he has to deport a lot of people in order to equal what Obama did. So I think people need to be more mature, need to grow, frankly, just to grow up about politics and oppose the crimes of the state and be consistent about it. And that way we cannot be fooled. We cannot go along with things we ought to oppose. Yes, Trump is helping Israel starve Gaza to death, but who gave him the keys to that particular evil door? It was Joe Biden. And Kamala Harris, of course, being his vice president, went along and she was working tirelessly on a ceasefire. No, actually, she wasn't. So I do hope that that people can try to see the world differently. That's why we need Black Agenda Report and other independent media, folks like yourself, so that we get to see and read these narratives that are generally ignored.
One other thing before we get into the meat and potatoes of these articles on blackagendareport.com. Again, a great website. You'll always find some stuff on there that you like. And that is, lately I've been seeing Trump as an Obama-esque figure. Tell you why. A lot of the MAGA people were like, kind of, you could see, sadly, the Democratic Party was consumed by the warmongers. Sadly, not sadly, I guess it's a good thing, there was some anti-war sentiment starting to stir in the MAGA people, right? And some anti-censorship starting to stir there. They bring Trump in. He's their guy. Oh boy, and what does he say? I'm going to stop censorship. Oh, I'm going to judge me by the wars that I eat. He was Obama. Obama said the same kinds of things. I'm for peace. I'm against cruelty, right? So you bring a guy in there that these people really like. He's the kind of strong, right-wing strong man that's very, very culturally, in a lot of ways, attractive to conservative MAGA type people, right? I'm not judging it. It is what it is. This is reality about politics. So they bring in the figure that's attractive to them. But what happens when he comes in? Censorship. Oh, the Democrats ain't doing it right. We're going to drag people and throw them in a detention camp in another country. He takes censorship through the roof. Number one. Number two, war. We'll attack these. We're going to attack Yemen. We're going to, I had so-called at least turned down the genocide. They were attacking the West Bank. Even somebody turned it down a little bit. What the hell? All the way. Let's go attack Lebanon. And now there's a discussion whether it'll attack Iran. So my point is, they played the same game on these right wingers in MAGA that they did on Trump, on the liberals or whatever the hell you call them. They bring in a person who says what they want to hear. Then when he gets, it's the same. He's. There are some areas that I'm going to be honest. The stuff with Russia is different. Fair enough. I'm going to give him credit where credit's due. But over and all, mostly other than Russia, which is important because I don't want to get nuked. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I want to be honest, But when it comes to China, he's still, God knows what he's doing there. He's still aligned with the neocons. So you know what I'm saying? You bring in there, if a little sentiment of anti-censorship and a little sentiment of anti-war stirring in the MAGA, they bring in Trump saying the right things and snuff it right out. What do you think?
Well, you're absolutely right. And that's what's so insidious. Everybody runs for office saying they're not going to have wars. George W. Bush, no regime change.
Compassionate conservatism. That was his term. Remember that?
That's right. Obama, allegedly against the Iraq war, but actually, if you looked into it too closely, not really.
He did the surge, remember? He said, Afghanistan, we ought to get out. And he did the surge and sent more people
right.
in. And then he said, what are you going to do? We're going to send more people in so we can get out. And I thought, gee, that really seems to be logically kind of weird to me. Anyway, go ahead.
Then you have Trump. I'm against the forever wars. He didn't, and Biden left Afghanistan because he thought he could counter Russia somewhere else. So even when I'm skipping over the point I was trying to make. What this means is people want peace. Most people, wherever they fall on the political spectrum, most people want peace. Most people don't want wars. They don't want their money spent on the military. And so they campaign for office knowing that people want peace. And then, of course, they get into office. And then, of course, there's a reason to have a conflict somewhere in the world. So it tells you that we don't get what we want. They know that they are planning to do things we don't want them to do. So they run for office making these claims. And as far as Russia, Trump is not really that different. He has had these negotiations with Russia. He wants Russia to pause the Ukraine war. He doesn't want to end it. And he wants to pause it so he can target China. Now, the Russians have thrown a monkey wrench into it because they're saying, no way. We're not going to pause it. That's what happened in Syria. They paused, quote unquote, and they left these fighters in place. And then the next thing you knew, the government was toppled. So Russia's experience tells them if there's a pause, it will be an operation, an opportunity for the U.S. and Europe to arm Ukraine and continue the conflict. So even there, I mean, we do need a normalization of relations with Russia. That's absolutely imperative. But once again, it's the same thing. It's still imperialism. It's still trying to stop China. So we're going to kind of, sort of have a truce with Russia, but not really, so we can target China. So even there, it's not what what was sold to us.
Yeah, exactly. And the schlumps in the EU, they're like, well, while you go after China, we'll rearm to get ready for a war with Russia. And what does Trump say? Does he say no? He said, sure, we'd be happy to tell you that. So we'll go ahead and ready you and arm you to the teeth so we get finished with China. Then you'll be good and armed and crazy as hell, which is what the leaders in Europe and then, hey, there we go. We can continue with World War III. Now, let's go to a very important article from Margaret Kimberly. And it is the U.S., EU, NATO's regime change playbook for Burkina Faso and Captain Ibrahim Traore. I look at this and I see a shuffling field, house, you know what, and I see a hero. And I think we know which one is which. This dude has, I don't even want to call him a dude. That's too much. This backstabbing, puppet for imperialism goes before the Senate to say basically these Africans who want to sell their own natural resources and use them for the betterment of their country. We can't allow that to have that. My master told me to come in here and say that we ain't allowed. He is a disgrace to humanity, much less the black race. Maybe I'm a little over the top, but that's the way I feel, Margaret.
Well, yes, you're referring to Michael Langley.
Oh God.
General, U.S. general, who is in charge of AFRICOM, the U.S. Africa Command, and he's playing his role. That's his job is to further U.S. interests, which means other countries have to remain client states or be enemies of the United States. Now, Traore is the president of Burkina Faso, a nation in West Africa and the Sahel region. And he was the leader of a coup d'etat against the former government, a government allied with the West, allied with France there. And by the way, this article is by Ann Garrison, one of our regular contributors.
Great work.
Yes, she does. And So these nations, Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, all bordering each other, all former French colonies, um, have had taken an independent stance internationally. So Burkina Faso has ended its military relationship with France, said French troops have to get out. It's a country with, like many African countries, with gold. And
Uh-oh. Uh-oh, did you say gold? They need some they need some democracy if they got gold.
exactly. But these resources are just extracted. So French mining companies, like, or Canadian mining companies, or Chinese mining companies, just extract and take these resources out of Africa. And what Traore has said is, no way. If you mine our gold, you've got to refine it in our country. You're not just going to take our resources and send them elsewhere. Um, and of course, this makes him, as you were just saying somewhat jokingly, that makes him very dangerous to the US and the other Western nations who depend upon countries being subservient and not fulfilling the needs of their people. So, and they have agreements with Russia about mining, and of course that puts a target on him. How dare he choose to have a relationship with Russia? That's their choice, to have a relationship with Russia. So of course he's under attack. And Langley said he's protecting his junta and all sorts of other foolishness. But that is what's to be expected of the United States. And I have to say about Langley and other Black faces in high places, as I said before at Black Agenda report, we do not, we're no respecter of persons as it is. We do not change our politics because the person in question is Black. He is a general of the United States, and that means he protects imperialism. And our line is an anti-imperialist line, so we will not hold back from condemning him and the actions of the U.S. Lest we forget Colin Powell. He was the first. I believe Colin Powell made it possible for Obama to become president. Being chairman of the Joint Chiefs, being Secretary of State, the disgraceful role he played at the United Nations, lying about weapons of mass destruction. He showed that Black people could be part of that power structure. Of course, they got rid of him when they didn't need him anymore. I think that's an important thing to point out. But at any rate, as you said before, we didn't feel a reason to praise Colin Powell or to praise Obama, and we're certainly not going to praise Langley. And as far as African nations are sovereign, or should be sovereign. They don't have to do what the former colonizer tells them to do or what the U.S. tells them to do. And if Traore wants to keep his resources for his people, if he wants to let Russia do the mining and change his arrangement, then so be it. And that's something the United States should just have to accept.
Here's an interesting excerpt I want to get your comment on. In a pathetic attempt to give this a bit of humanity or legitimacy, Langley complained that Traore was using the country's gold to finance his own security rather than for the benefit of his people. Gee, I wonder what he'd have to say about the U.S. blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline.
Does the U.S. leadership do what benefits us? No, they don't. But we see these regime change attempt. First, you smear the person, then you claim he's violating human rights, then you say he's stealing the gold for himself. Then the human rights industrial complex weighs in and finds some problem with his government. Then you claim that his people don't like him. Then lo and behold, what a surprise! There are protests against him. What a shock! So we've seen this playbook before. But I would just remind people that we are supposed to support other nations in their desire for sovereignty. That's especially important for African nations.
Here's what's interesting. The level of hypocrisy There
Mhm.
is no length that the leaders of our country will not go to. At a time, I ride down the road, I literally got a knot on the side of my tire right now that I've, and you know how expensive tires are for cars. I got a knot. I'm gonna have to get a brand new tire. I'm gonna have to get a tire. Why? Pothole. Right around the roads, and they're a disaster. So my roads look like crap. They won't fix our infrastructure. Our bridges, if you ride by any bridge and look on the side, it'll say made in 1894. Literally made in I can point you to bridges that were made in the 1800s. This is the 2000s. Tunnels literally leaking and cracking. You're scared to drive through them. Meanwhile, people can't afford to pay the bills. They have no health care. They can't pay their predatory loans for
Mhm.
college.
Yep.
So, at a point when the ruling elite prey on the working class, extract every dime they can get out of them, and people are now living in misery. This guy goes in front of the Senate and says, "Yeah, they got gold over there, and they're not using it to help their people." And Trump just said, "Hey, you know what? A guy who came in and started off saying, yeah, we need an 8% decrease in Pentagon funding. Let's look into how to do that." Now he brags we're going to do a $130 billion increase. They lay off a bunch of soccer moms and dads at the Department of Agriculture. And then we've got to save money. And then they increased the Pentagon budget by more than they supposedly saved, laying off a bunch of working class people. But this guy, he's not using his gold to help the people. He's using it for security. Well, wait a minute. You're trying to kill him. What? I think he better put some money into security.
Yes, it's you've really laid out what we this continuity that I was referring to, that we see. The military budget goes up and up and up with Democrats, with Republicans. When Trump was in office the first time, even when Nancy Pelosi controlled the House, they gave him everything, actually gave him more than he wanted in defense spending. And I knew that was phony, talking about cutting the defense budget, which is more than 800 billion. He wants to make it 1 trillion. And then, of course, people wonder, well, why don't we have manufacturing here? Let's have tariffs, and then we can have manufacturing here. Actually, no, that you could. But that $1 trillion you're spending on the military, you would have to spend on reindustrializing the country, which was deindustrialized because finance capital said, we don't want to do that anymore. Let's let China make cheap stuff for us. And of course, China took it and ran with it, and the rest is history. But our needs are not met. Just to get to your point, I know Biden had this infrastructure bill. They made a big deal about it, but I don't know what it does. I don't know if it's good enough, but everything from potholes to bridges to mass transit in this country, all of it needs more money, needs investment, public money. That's what it should be spent for, instead of it being used in Ukraine. Everything the Ukrainian government spends money on comes from us, the American taxpayer. Our public money doesn't just go for weapons for Ukraine. It's every aspect of Ukraine's government. By the way, they've got free health care over there. How about that?
Of course.
Another
Just
country where
like
we pay.
Israel. Israel
Yes,
does too. We pay for free health care in
absolutely.
Israel and
People
Ukraine. You're
have
screwed here.
have free health care on our dime, and we're told we can never have that. But you're absolutely right. We do have an oligarchy. Now, I don't think there's anything that Bernie Sanders or AOC are saying or doing that's going to end it. It's a duopoly. The Republicans have their oligarchs and Democrats have theirs, and none of them want the people to have anything. And that, which is why Trump is president, because they said, you're not going to do Build Back Better. They're the ones who stepped in and stopped that. They're the ones who said, okay, COVID's over, enough already. We're getting rid of these programs that actually helped people. Now
Child tax
people
credit. Remember that? That was a big
child
one.
tax
Put
credit.
money in
Listen,
people's hands.
I have joked that if there was still a child tax credit, people wouldn't have cared that Biden was senile. He could have run for re-election and won again. But now we have the student loans. Now Trump is saying that people were able to stop paying for a few years, It's money people can never pay. They cannot pay, even if they pay it. It's crazy. It used to be called usury. Do you
Yep.
remember
Yep.
usury?
Yep.
But so now people who their layoffs and people have to pay back these student loans can have their wages garnished, can have their Social Security garnished if they don't pay it back. People who are already struggling to pay rent, struggling for all kinds of reasons. So Trump's this pretense of he's the guy for the working class. No, he isn't. No, he isn't. I mean, and these tariffs, it's a tax. They should just change the word to tax. If there are tariffs placed on products from China or from any other country, the consumer pays. And they've botched this so badly, they didn't even make an effort to talk to China to negotiate at all. And China just said, oh yeah, okay, we won't send anything over there. And the CEOs of Target and Walmart and somebody else met with Trump to say what? To tell him, our shelves are going to be empty in about a month. But there's no one addressing that. And instead you have Trump claiming he talked to Xi Jinping when the Chinese said, actually, no, some easily provable lie. So yes, you're absolutely right about the potholes in your neck of the woods and everybody's neck of the woods, all of the needs that people have in these countries that are not being met. We have a president who's petty about all kinds of foolishness. He wants to control the colleges and let's talk about the people who've given in to him. Like Columbia, Columbia University here in New York, I now call it Trump University, the law firms who've cut these deals with him, all these people who we thought would, stand up for so-called liberal values, they don't care at all. So we're in a world of hurt because of this political leadership so-called leadership that we have, and the people who knuckle under and go along.
Here's another great article from Black Agenda Report that I would recommend to everyone, and it's important because Grail and Hagler, capitulation masquerading as political thought. Liberals continue to condemn anyone who didn't support Kamala Harris and the latest iteration of neoliberal treachery. Black people are told to stand down when there is a fight worth waging. And Grail, you see these people and they're supposed to be, we're standing up for Black folks, the poor folks, the poor people's march, the poor people's this and that, just like Bernie Sanders. And every 4 years, some neoliberal warmonger, it runs. And what do they say to us? Well, it's the one less concentration camp rule. And you're like, the Democrats are terrible. They've got 5 concentration camps. Yeah, but the Republicans have 6. One less concentration. You got to vote for the guy with one less concentration. That's where we are. Oh, I mean, I'm being facetious, but it's the ultimate end of this lesser of two evils. They get more and more evil to the point where they're literally committing a genocide right in front of your face. They're lying to you. Yes, sir. We're doing everything we can to get a ceasefire, but we can't let anybody speak on behalf of the Palestinians or against genocide at the Democratic Convention. And you get people like Grail and Hagler and Langley, whoever, these so-called Black misleaders coming out telling us, well, you probably should have voted for Kamala. And I think they're greasing the skids so that in the midterms, they can come out and start pounding on Black people and say, okay, you may have screwed up when you didn't vote for Kamala, but now we've got a bunch of neoliberal warmongers and ex-CIA agents. You can vote for them and make up for your misdeeds. Margaret.
Yeah, this was we felt it was important to write about this. Reverend Hagler has been a leader in the community in Washington, a person with progressive politics, a person I have respected. But he wrote, it was very unfortunate, this essay, which got a lot of attention in liberal independent media. The betrayal of the Black community is what he called it. And basically, it was a screed against anybody who didn't vote for Kamala Harris. It's all your fault that we have Trump. White women didn't vote for us. A lot of Latinos didn't vote for Kamala Harris. The people who didn't vote, so what about the genocide? You should have voted for her anyway. And I just felt that this was very dangerous thinking, just the capitulation to the Democratic Party, which is to blame for Trump winning again. Every time Trump wins, I say it all the time. He doesn't criticize the Democratic Party at all. It's just an attack on anybody who wouldn't vote for Kamala Harris. He says, well, we can sort of understand why Palestinians and Arabs wouldn't want to vote for her. We can emotionally understand, as if, so what are you saying? Are you saying that people should vote for someone who's conducting a genocide against their people? How do you ask someone to ignore that? But that's what he did. And it leads to, it's just complete capitulation to the Democratic Party, to everything they did that led us to this moment. It doesn't, he doesn't urge people to organize. He doesn't urge us to think about different political paths. It's just electoral politics, throwing in the towel, so-called lesser evilism. Lesser to whom? Not lesser to people in Gaza who were being starved to death with Joe Biden's help, and not for us here to have this pretense of an administration that doesn't do anything for us. Or it would claim, well, we're going to have Build Back Better. We're going to raise, remember the minimum wage? They said, well, the Senate parliamentarian says we can't. Well, guess what? The vice president can overrule the Senate parliamentarian. So if they wanted to raise the minimum wage when they had control of Congress, they could have done it. So this idea that everything's wonderful when Democrats are in, this idea that all we have is electoral politics and all we have is voting blue, no matter who. You can't critique them. You can't talk about the things they've done to undermine us. It's just look at Trump, but Trump, that's the answer to everything. And so it's really just capitulating and acting as though you've made some grand political decision. And this business of blaming anybody when Democrats lose is just absurd. People don't have an obligation to vote for a particular, to vote for a political party. And the fact that the way Kamala Harris became the nominee, it was interference from Democratic Party oligarchs who finally did what they should have done a year and a half earlier and told Biden, we're not giving any money if you're the person. But they messed it up. Biden endorsed Harris. Obama didn't want him to endorse Harris. Nancy Pelosi, their plan was to have a pretend open convention, make it look like there was some choice there by the people. They didn't have, who really had a primary? The Republicans. So you had these, they screwed it up, frankly. And they ended up with a nominee nobody really liked, the word salad lady, as I call her, a neoliberal who can't even articulate and give people a reason to be neoliberal. So of course they lost. And but to just say that, you know, all you can do is vote for Democrats, and we're mad at anybody who, I mean, it's so silly. He says, we can't believe white women voted for Trump. What, really? White people have been voting Republican for presidents since Lyndon Johnson was the last Democrat to get a majority of the white vote. So it's that kind of silliness, telling people that they should ignore their ethics, ignore their morals, telling people they shouldn't demand more, that we should not be really politically active. We felt it was very important to comment on that.
Well, and it's dividing people up by things other than economic class. Because when I talk about politics, I say the working class have to come together against the ruling elite. That's the kind of stuff I talk about. But they want to say the white women voters, the trans voters, the black male voters, the black female. But whoa. Beyonce is a black female voter. and a poor woman who lives in the, in poverty is a Black female voter. They have very different material needs. So one of the things that this leadership class does is they put everybody in the same. They'll say, for instance, I remember talking to a friend of mine who was, very well to do, and he was talking about that. He was saying something about his kid, and somebody was talking about Black kids that are, don't have as great a chance. And he says, my son doesn't. The guy makes like $500,000 a year. His son, he owns a company, and somebody was talking to him about his boys and Black youth who are, and he's a good guy, politically aligned with me. But the guy's like, it's absurd. They're talking about my sons who go to private school in the same way they talk about a young Black boy who's in an impoverished area who has a school that doesn't even have decent heat and air conditioning. The kids are either shivering or sweating to death if they could get a pencil, which they can't. So that's the other part of it, I think, sadly, and that is to divide the voters up by something other than economic class. I'm a big, yes, do I believe that Black people have specific needs because they're Black? A lot of us do. But I think the way to political change is saying the working class have to come together and unite. I think that's an important, but the Grail and Hagglers of the world, I've met the guy before, and I have thought a lot of him over the course of time. But where we are now, I'm not going to say the Grail and Hagglers of the world, because I don't want to disrespect the guy because he's done a lot of good stuff. I'm saying this mindset of fealty to these neoliberals does not take into account that there are poor Black people and there's poor white folks, very poor white folks that got the same exact economic needs as poor Black folks, and that we need to have a discussion about economic class. And they kill that economic class discussion, which works right into the Democrats, because neither one of these parties are doing nothing for the working class. And I think that's the conversation that needs to happen, Margaret.
It's because they answer to their oligarchy, which tells them you'd better not speak up for working class people. You're not going to get any money to run for office. Cory Booker and Hakeem Jeffries, wearing, it was hilarious. It was like, it looked like a dumb album cover, wearing casual, all wearing Black. We're talking about what we're going to do now, or some foolishness. And both of them get a lot of money from AIPAC. They're not going to talk about Zionism. They get money from the banking industry. Cory Booker gets a lot of money from Big Pharma. New Jersey is a big pharmaceutical state. They don't represent us. They don't represent us. And it's easy to point at Donald Trump and talk about how bad he is in any number of ways, but these people don't represent our needs either. So as long as we have this system where capitalism controls the political parties, the people are going to be the losers. And I think, and we also see with Trump how little the Democrats have done. I mean, they just seem flummoxed, and that's because they thought they were going to cut deals with Trump. They thought, the minority party gets a little something, and Trump cut them out altogether. So they don't know what to do. And Democratic voters want them to stand up, want them to oppose Trump. And what did Schumer say the other day? I wrote a very strongly worded letter about something. You wrote a letter? Really, dude? Cory Booker and Hakeem Jeffries with some fake and ridiculous looking photograph. Cory Booker talking for 25 hours, not even a real filibuster where he was actually opposing any Trump's legislation, which is what a real filibuster is, by the way. So it's all fakery and foolishness because they work against our interests. If they won't raise the minimum wage, they're not helping working people. That's not their job. They take orders. They are errand boys and errand girls for the ruling class. And it's up to us to figure out something new. A general strike. These are things that require a lot of organization and political education that you can't just pull off very easily. But people need to stop being fooled by these politicians. It's not electoral politics that is going to save us. And the institutions that we thought were on our side are not. So now we know. So the question is, what do we do to help ourselves as we struggle with student loans, with rent, with all of these things that make it harder and harder to live? And the Democrats, I want to say one more thing about their campaign. They kept telling us the economy is good.
Oh yeah.
So they were like, they always chose some indicator that had nothing to do with anybody's life and essentially said, well, you're doing well. You're just too dumb to know it, because this indicator over here says the economy's good. And people kept saying, no, I'm not doing well. And they thought that, shoehorning the word salad lady in at the last minute was going to save them. 6 million people voted for Biden in 2020 who would not vote for Kamala Harris. That's the story. And it's not because they were betraying Black people or anything. The Democrats didn't earn their votes. And now we are, and that is absolutely true. And I used to say that you should vote. You have to vote. You have to vote. I don't do that anymore. I don't say that anymore. You should vote if you feel these people are meeting your needs. And if you don't think that and you don't want to vote, fine, go ahead. What are you voting for? What difference do you get in the end if you end up with two parties that neither one of them wants to raise the minimum wage and both of them want to endlessly feed the military-industrial complex?
Well, here's the truth. The Democrats pushed that lesser of two evils to a point where there were a lot of people that thought Trump was the lesser of two evils. That's a fact. I know a lot of people. Me, because I felt, and many people and many international geopolitical experts have said, the most important relationship is the relationship for international peace and for safety is the relationship between Russia and the United States. That could get us nuked. And the Biden administration refused to talk to him. And the Trump administration is talking to him. As angry as I am about the Trump administration, I don't want to die in a nuclear firestorm. So they pushed the lesser of two evils as long as they could, but they're so bad that there were people like, well, I really don't like Trump at all. I don't want to die in a nuclear war. And people started, and they're like, and let's see, if I vote in the Democrats, they'll probably be overruled by the Senate parliamentarian anyway. Joe Biden's like, hey, we're the most, he literally said, we're the most powerful country in the world. We can fight 2-3 wars and win. But now that Senate parliamentarian guy, I mean, hey, I have no chance of standing up against the might and power of the imperial leader, who's the Senate parliamentarian, some guy that doesn't even really have an office.
I mean, you're absolutely right. And to the very end, the Biden administration was trying to start a war with Iran that they wanted to hand over to Trump. I mean, it's crazy. Now, Trump it's unclear what's going to happen. It seems that Russia is working with Iran on an agreement that Biden should have restored. Obama had this deal with Iran. Trump gets rid of it. Biden comes in and sticks with Trump. Yep. So what is this lesser evilism? And I'll go back to my other point. They know what people want. Remember, Biden came in talking about cutting child poverty in half and being the most progressive president since FDR. They know that's what people want, but that's not what happened. So they think people are stupid. They think they can get away with lying. And no one is supposed to say, actually, I'm not going to vote for you. But that's what happened. But then, of course, being who they are, it's, oh, you were the bad people who wouldn't vote for us. You betrayed Black people because you wouldn't continue to vote for this nonsense. So that is where we are. People have to look beyond the electoral system.
One last thing, and this is something that you talked about, but just a little bit expanse on it, and that is Reverend Grayling Hagler in his whatever you want to call it, article speech, basically said, I can emotionally understand why the Muslims, these people whose people are being, genocided, emotionally understand why they wouldn't vote for Kamala. Here's the issue. There's something implied. And what's implied is their decision was emotional. It wasn't intellectual. it wasn't tactical, right? That it's like the old saying, people who like women, they're like, oh, women are just emotional creatures. They can't think for themselves. Anything a woman, oh, women are just crazy people. They'll never, they don't want to give women the credit for being intellectual people. That's an old trope in the United States that we're all familiar with, right? Usually against Black people. Right? They're not smart. They're just emotional, crazy people, right? It's always used to belittle people. Here you have this old dude, Raylan. I'm not going to say anything bad. Reverend Hagler. I will be kind. As I said, I met the guy before and I didn't dislike him. I did not dislike him. I liked him. I think he's done some good stuff. Let's just say he's gone astray. But here's my point. In a way, he's calling the Muslim people stupid because they didn't vote for Kamala. It was an emotional decision, and they didn't stop to think things through. They were so overcome by emotions that if they'd used their intellectual part of their brain, they would use the wrong side of their brain. They'd surely, if they were just smart enough. That implies that he's smarter than they are, doesn't it? If I know that what you did was stupid and it was emotional, I can only know that if I'm smarter than you. It's an attack on the intellectual capacity and the political sophistication of the Muslim people. And I have long argued, I applaud them. I wish Black people would learn and say to the Democratic Party, you screw us, you can't get our votes. And that's what they said. And I applaud the Muslim community 100% for that.
Absolutely. That's what you're supposed, these people are supposed to work for us. And so regardless of your heritage or religion or where you're from, if you say, I'm not voting for genocide, that is a stance that's politically sound, that's ethical, that's moral, that is, what is not defensible is saying, it's really bad. They're starving people and bombing hospitals and torturing people. But I got to vote blue no matter who. I'm going to overlook a genocide. I'm going to overlook war crimes and vote for them because of some other thing. No, people have the right to say, I'm not supporting that. And and as you pointed out with Black people, what do we get when we get Democrats in office? Clinton's crime bill, putting Black people in jail. Clinton's immigration bill, which allowed even people here legally to be deported for little or nothing. What did Obama do for Black homeowners? He bailed out the banks. Did he bail out the people who were losing their houses? No, he did not. So I could go on and on with all the things they have done against us and not done for us, and we're supposed to keep voting for them? No, absolutely not. So I can emotionally understand, quote unquote, why people wouldn't vote for genocide. I can intellectually understand why people wouldn't vote for genocide, and we should be encouraging people not to vote for genocide, to tell these folks, I am not going to vote for war crimes. You can go ahead and do it if you want, but I'm not voting for you. But you see what they do? They lost in part because of that. And their response is to vilify the people who stood up to them. And even all the warnings about Trump, they're not fighting. Are the Democrats really fighting Trump?
They're fighting Trump. Oh, we hate Trump and Elon Musk. He's terrible. True. Trump. But his policies, where are they screaming to stop the genocide?
They are.
The only thing they're angry at Trump about is because he's trying to get out of Ukraine. That's what they're fighting. The only policy they're really fighting Trump on is that he wants to get out of Ukraine. That's it. Other than that, you see these fake protests that the people are on MSNBC all day saying we're having a protest, and you look at the protests and it's like, yes, Trump, get your hands off NATO so we can continue to overthrow Burkina Faso.
Hands off NATO. The world doesn't need NATO. NATO's puts all of us at risk. So no, I'm not going to say hands off of NATO. So, and it's easy to dislike Trump the person, his persona, but these policies, they are like, what did Hakeem Jeffrey said? Well, we don't have leverage. I don't know. We really have leverage. So what was the purpose of voting for them? It's like, now it's your time to really be an opposition party, but they're not in opposition.
No, absolutely. They're not. They're just an absolute disgrace. And we're supposed to say, yeah, but I keep saying, yeah, but they've got one less, one less detention camp, one less concentration camp than the Republicans. They only got, no, actually, what would happen would be if there was concentration camps, which wouldn't surprise me. But if they had concentration camps, the difference? They both have 10. But the Democrats would say, yes, but ours are run by a diverse group of women and a trans person. And you know what I mean? That's what they'd have. They'd have a diverse group of people who actually ran. They beat you far worse and starve you even worse in their detention camps, but they'd be run by a diverse group of people. And so they'd be proud of that. Margaret Kimberly. Oh, go ahead. You had something else to say.
Yes, just I want to show my book, Presidential, Black America and the Presidents. It's a great book. Everybody should read it.
Awesome. And let's see. I also want people to have one more peep at this website, blackagendareport.com, all kinds of stuff, great articles. You see there.
Yes, we've got history, we got poetry, we
got Africa, always lots of stuff.
We've got Africa. We've got
the creation of the new anti-Semitism was used to shield Israel and attack from the left.
Yes, and we have even more. We have another statement from Black Alliance for Peace about the genocide. If you scroll back up, we have information about racism in the Dominican Republic against Haitians and anybody thought to be Haitian. So yes, blackagendareport.com every Wednesday.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff, a lot of international, a lot of foreign policy, Africa, Haiti, South America, Venezuela, Cuba, all kinds of great stuff. It's fantastic. One of my favorite websites. Every Wednesday, I go to Black Agenda Report. And, people listen to my show, and a lot of people like say, well, I like the stuff you say, Garland. Well, these are the kind of places you have to go. Consortium News, Mint Press News, Black Agenda Report, the kind of places that are under attack by the system. This is where you'll get a lot of information. Margaret Kimberly, thank you very much, and hope to get you back on soon.
Thank you, Garland.
All right, everybody. And this is what's important. All 472 people in the chat right now, you're a big part of this. This is alternative media. And what you have to do, what's important, your part of this whole operation is to share this on all your social media platforms. So think about that, 470 some people all sharing this on X and Telegram and Facebook and whatever. The algorithms can't stop that. So you guys are very, very important in keeping alternative media going. Follow me on Rumble. Follow me on Rockfin. Every now and then I'll say something, or one of my guests will say something that YouTube doesn't like and they'll kill the video, but you can still find it on Rumble or Rockfin. And thanks, everybody. Have a great day. We're out.